This is a video I took with my new Phantom Vision 2 Plus. I've only had the bird about 2 weeks. I've flown it 8 or 10 times, I suppose. It was a new firmware update, and I had just installed that update, and I wanted to take it out to a big open field and test a couple of the parameters I changed. I had set the altitude to not exceed 400 feet. And I'd already tested that. It went to 417 feet, and the screen said it had reached maximum altitude. I had set the radius to be 2,000 feet. Didn't really know what 2,000 feet would be, but I thought, well, I'll start there. It's actually probably farther than I need to fly it. But I just took this short video here. You can see the area that I was flying in. As I was flying it, I noticed I could see the Zion Hospital. I thought if I go up a little bit higher, I would be able to get a good shot of the hospital and the surrounding area. So I was just watching the screen and looking at how many feet away. I think at this point I'm only 200 or 300 feet away. I turned the copter around and headed it back towards home base where we had started, where I had established a home position. You can see there aren't many trees. Unfortunately, there was nobody there that day, so I didn't have any people to be concerned about. I flew it back and landed it right where I took off, and then looked everything over again and decided I would make a second flight and go and see if I could get a better picture of that hospital. We do all the work on their limousines and their vehicles there, so I was interested in taking a nice picture of it. Not sure what I was going to do with it, but anyways, that was the area that I was flying in. And this next scene is the beginning of what started out as just going to be a flight, but turned out to be what I thought was what I had done to lose my Phantom. You can see I started out at about 100 feet there, 110 feet. You can see the Zion nuclear plant way off to the left there. The hospital is right in front of me. I flew to where I was about 750 feet away, and I just hovered there for a little bit. There was nothing between me and the Phantom. I let it sit there for a little bit. I wanted the center to shot up a little bit, so I made a couple of adjustments to the camera. I liked what I was seeing. I thought, well, I could get a little bit closer than this. I could still see the Phantom, and I was going back and forth between looking at the screen on my iPhone and looking at the Phantom. As I went a little further forward, not a lot, but I got up to about 850 feet, I think was the last thing I saw on the iPhone. It was right in here that I decided I had enough of the picture I wanted. I made a couple more adjustments. Was just looking at my iPhone, but when I looked back up, I couldn't really find the copter in the sky. I knew it was there, but I just couldn't find it. So right in here, I decided I'm going to turn it around and bring it back to me, and then I'll see what I've got for video. As you can see, I turned too far. I went all the way back around to where I was actually looking right at the hospital again. Now, at that point, the screen just stayed on the hospital. And the inset will show you what the Phantom was actually doing. But according to the iPhone, it was sitting still hovering. I just don't have enough experience. I didn't realize that what had happened is I had lost my video link, but I had not lost control of the copter. So I started walking towards the copter thinking that I need to reestablish my connection. It's just hovering there in the sky. So the whole time that you see this little inset there, and now I've put it back on the big screen, but the bird was responding just fine to every little thing that I was doing. I wasn't trying to make any radical moves. I wanted to see if I could get it going north. According to the little radar screen, I had it pointing north. And so I thought, well, I'll start flying it forward, and I should see it. It should pass over me, but I was concentrating more on the screen, of course, which all I was seeing was the hospital. The Phantom was hovering there, and then when I thought I was moving it forward towards me, I was actually flying it to the northeast, away from me. So while I'm walking south, the bird's going northeast, and I don't realize that it's too high for me to see it, and I'm getting really panicky now. I'm certain that pretty soon I'm going to run out of battery, and this thing's going to come down someplace where I don't want it to. I got all the way to the street the hospital is on. I'm looking in treetops. I'm looking in the roofs. I'm looking over at the swimming pool. I don't see anybody hovering over anything. I didn't know what to do at this point. I went back and forth about a half a block either direction, trying to see if I could see it up in the air, because, again, I'm looking at this frozen screen. The battery signal still looked good, but I assumed that because I'd lost communication, I wasn't seeing the battery signal either. So at that point, I decided right in here it was time for me to pull the failsafe switch and see if I could get it to go home. Right after I pulled the fail switch down to the GPS unlock position, I guess, I closed the app and went into the settings and used that utility they have that says Find My Phantom. I was very pleased to see it put a red pin right on the map, right on the street I was originally flying from, but about 3 blocks away. So I walked as fast as I could, and I actually hitched a ride with somebody at one point, and I got to where I was standing right on top of that red dot, and I am looking feverishly up in trees and walking through people's backyards, and stopped and talked to some kids I saw. Did you hear something that sounded like a bunch of bumblebees, or has anybody seen something with 4 propellers? It's white. And to no avail, of course. I made a frantic call to Adam that I bought it from AeroWorks, and he was up in Oshkosh, so he couldn't get my call. So at this point, I made the call I didn't want to make. I called my wife and asked her to go back to the high school in the park there and pick up my case and the extra batteries that I had in it. And of course, she wanted to know why, and I said, well, I think I've lost my drone, and I don't want to lose the case, so if you could go pick that up, I'd appreciate it. I continued looking. I walked about a half a block in any direction. Everywhere I walked, I was walking away from the location that the Phantom was marked at. It wasn't long, because we're not that far away, that my wife called me, and she said, well, where are you? And I said, well, I'm about 3 blocks away. I'll start walking back that way. I said, did you get my case? Is it still sitting there? I was hoping somebody hadn't walked off with that. And she said, well, yes, I've got your case, and the drone is here as well. Well, I guess I don't have to tell you how that made me feel. Elated, of course, but also very foolish that I had walked all the way down here when it was right back where it was supposed to have been. You can see by the video that it went back to home, and it orientated itself in the same direction it was in when it took off. And it went on about its business of landing, which is what it was supposed to have done. I guess my issue is, if I don't have an issue, but what I'm perplexed by is why did it mark the map about 3.5 blocks away from where home should have been? I've talked to Adam about this, and we're not real clear exactly what happened, but I think at the time that I pulled the fail-safe switch, I suspect that breaks the GPS connection, and it marks the map as this was the last known GPS position for the Phantom. The odd thing is the very next morning, I turned my app back on to see where it said the Phantom was, and oddly enough, it now had a new pin marking exactly where I had picked it up, where home base was. So don't really know any answers. I'm going to do some more testing, and maybe I'll post another video if I can come up with an answer to that. I noticed that when it landed, it landed okay. It didn't tip over or anything, but then it flew forward a few feet. Not sure why it did that. But it did, in fact, land about 10 feet from where I had taken off originally. So that's my story. I've cut about 25 minutes out of this video because it just sits there in the grass patiently waiting for my wife to come along and pick it up. So she does arrive. She picks it up. She walks over to the truck. All of the time the video is still running. She put it in the truck. I can see it in the truck. You can see the little landing pad that I had used for taking off from. It's still a mystery as to what it did, but the moral of the story, I guess, is just don't panic. Pull the fail-safe switch if you think you've lost it. Stand still and wait for it. It's going to do what it's supposed to do. It's going to come right back to where you started from. I had set the course lock before I left. I had calibrated the compass. I calibrate the compass every time I take off. Before I leave, I calibrate the compass. I make sure I have at least 6 satellites to work from. Prefer 8 or 9, but I know that it's safe to fly it with only 6. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.